All right then.
Well, welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone on what for me is March 27th. And for some of you in the room here in Zoom and perhaps watching out there on Facebook, it is already the 28th of March. I'm Sandy Yannone. I'm your host of Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, and it is my most joyous
Did we lose Sandy?
I think maybe so. Why don't you go ahead, Kim?
Well, I'll go ahead and invite folks. We've lost Sandy for a moment, but I'm sure she'll be popping back in. Welcome everyone, as she was saying, to our second anniversary celebration. What better way to celebrate than with an open mic? And we're going to begin our open mic with the kindest Cait I know, Cait Wegrzyn. Thank you so much, Cait.
Hello. Happy anniversary. I'm honored to have been here since the beginning, and I have fallen in love. I want you to imagine, for the moment, your local event center. I want you to imagine the joy, the talent, the music, whatever instrument you loved of the orchestra. Oh, I tried playing the cello as a child. The drama, the theater, the gaiety, the costuming, all of the people that make up your local event center. Then imagine Ukraine, the event center, now set up as a distribution center. Imagine all those that gather to be part of the donations. The Paddy tours from Ireland told us we're heading to Poland to bring provisions, not only for in Poland, but to go to the Ukraine. Imagine my first viewing on the television of people migrating as fast as they could, lucky ones with cars. Oh, how lucky could it be? People traveling for days on end. Imagine if I was walking from Colorado to Salt Lake City to save my life. Men protecting the women and the children and the elderly, getting them across the border of the Ukraine to Poland. And the men, honor the men turning around, the teens and the men of all ages, to go and fight the courageous fight. My first viewing, no one had gloves on. I wrote in different poetry groups saying, can you imagine? It's frostbite. You could get frostbite so quickly. Please send gloves. I contacted a tractor in Ireland and said, put on the tour buses gloves. Everyone needs gloves. Imagine my joy. I started to see people with gloves. Then I listened to Amma from the Women's Coalition in Ukraine. And she said, We need jeeps for armed forces and the volunteers. We need pickup trucks. We need generators. We need rifles, machine guns, bazookas, ammunition. Anna, I called her Amma, which is soul. Anna, thank you for being the head of this women's coalition. Each person there is ahead of what they are doing to create life, freedom, and we will offer what we can, from gloves to ammo to protection. Imagine. Love, Cait.
Thank you, Cait, so much for that heartfelt opening today. Imagine indeed. I think Sandy, thank you so much for starting us off. I think Sandy has been able to join us, but while she is getting herself oriented, unless she wants to pop in, are you ready, Sandy?
I'm ready. I'm ready. And my apologies, everyone. I was here and my internet is having the trickster energy on this anniversary. So again, I want to welcome everyone to our, and thank you so much, Cait. It's not only is it appropriate to have you be our first reader today for our anniversary reading, as a person who was one of our early members when we began in Missoula, Montana, but also reading that poem, reminding us of our continued urgency and concern for the people of Ukraine reminds me that one of the things I wanted to share with you today before we went fully to the open mic was to thank our readers from last week that we had the incredible pleasure of hearing from through Lost Horse Press's contemporary Ukrainian poetry series. And I will mention them by name at the end of the reading today, because I want to continue to encourage you all to support the poets of Ukraine, as well as Lost Horse Press's efforts to keep Ukrainian poetry, particularly in translation, with us. So I will be mentioning that at the end. Just to get, before we go to Dr. Arun Jee from India today, joining us for the first time, I'd love to just say a very few brief words about the history of Cultivating Voices live poetry. My sister and I began our first recording with all of you from Facebook on March 29th, 2020, just as things had begun shutting down. And there were 15 very, very brave poets who said they would come, 12 poets who said they would come read with us for 15 minutes apiece. It was very epic readings. And folks went directly live to Facebook, individually, one at a time. And so we were always kind of nervous. This was before things had kind of gone right over to Zoom, and waiting for people to come on and hoping they would make it and know how to use the technology. Well, we did that for a few months until we switched over to Zoom, and it was remarkable. It was remarkable who began to show up and come on to read from week to week, as we had started with very, very strong showings from folks in the US. Obviously, that was my base, as well as poets from Ireland, because of my connection with Salmon Poetry. But we quickly were able to move to have people joining us from India, Nepal, and Canada, and many other, and many, Bangladesh and New Zealand and Australia. And it's just been such a joy to continue to connect with the poets as you've all found your way here. So I want to just say, not happy anniversary to me, but happy anniversary to all of you. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, and as well as my sister who helped me organize and begin Cultivating Voices live poetry in its early stages. So without further ado, let's go back to the poetry. That's why we're really here. And again, thanks to each of you for being here. We will hear now a very special addition to our program today. For the first time reading with us, Dr. Arun Jee. And next then we'll hear from McCullagh Bombarda. Yeah, McCullagh Bombarda will be next. Thank you, Dr. Jee. Thank you, Dr. Jee, for being here today.
Thank you so much, Sandy. You can call me just Arun. I'm sorry, I just wrote the formal doctor. I should not have, because that's not the way it should have been. But congratulations on the completion of 2 years of this initiative. Great initiative, I would say, to connect with people all around the world. And it's a chance that I had got that book, Deaf Republic. I want to just mention about that. Many of you must be knowing about the book already, because he is an American, of course, Ukrainian American poet, and it's one of the well-known poetry collection books there in the US. I had seen that review, and then I bought the book in 2019. But then I got hooked, and then it was only in December that I started translating. And anyway, that's a different thing. But irony is that the war started in March, and then all this. So it has become more relevant, Deaf Republic by Ilya Kaminsky. And if I'll just give a background about that a book is called an epic. It tells a story, the story of a military rule in an imagined country. And it's a cruel political system that tortures and prosecutes the common citizens of that country. And the citizens decide to revolt and to, protest. They do it, but they suffer a lot, and then finally they give up and they surrender. So this is the story, but the poem that I'm going to read out is the concluding poem, the last poem of this book, which is a comment on that story. And ironically, it's a deep irony that comment applies now. It has become relevant now, not just to that story, but to stories around the world, to stories around the democracies in the world, and of course, unfortunately, to Ukraine and Europe and US and Asia and all those places. So I think it's poetry. It's a poetry session. I should not use prose so much. I'll start with the poem. I'll begin with English and then followed by Hindi. So, the English one. The title is In a Time of Peace. In a time of peace. Inhabitant of earth for 40-something years, I once found myself in a peaceful country. I watch neighbors open their phones to watch. A cop demanding a man's driving license. When the man reaches for his wallet, the cop shoots into the car window. Shoots. It's a peaceful country. We pocket our phones and go to the dentist, to pick up the kids from school, to buy shampoo and basil. Ours is a country in which a boy shot by police lies on the pavement for hours. We see in his open mouth the nakedness of the whole nation. We watch others watch. The body of a boy lies on the pavement, exactly like the body of a boy. It's a peaceful country, and it clips our citizens' bodies effortlessly, the way the president's wife trims her toenails. All of us still have to do the hard work of dentist appointments, of remembering to make a summer salad, basil, tomato. It's a joy. Tomato. Add a little salt. This is a time of peace. I do not hear gunshots, but watch birds splash over the backyards of the suburbs. How bright is the sky as the avenue spins on its axis. How bright is the sky. Forgive me. How bright. Now the same in Hindi. ये शांति अमन चैन का समय है। सुनो सुनो ओ दुनिया के लोगों, आज से लगभग 40 साल पहले मैं एक शांति प्रिय देश में रहता था। देखता था पड़ोसियों को अपने फोन को खोलकर देखते हुए, एक पुलिस वाले को एक आदमी से ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस मांगते हुए, और जब तक वो आदमी अपना बटुआ निकाले उसे गोली मारते हुए, उसकी गाड़ी की खिड़की से उसे गोली मारते हुए। शांति प्रिय है ये देश हमारा। पॉकेट में फोन डालकर हम चल पड़ते हैं डेंटिस्ट के यहाँ, बच्चों को स्कूल से लाने, शैम्पू खरीदने, बेसिल खरीदने। ऐसा है देश हमारा, जहाँ पुलिस की गोली से मृत एक बच्चा घंटों इंतजार में रहता है फुटपाथ पर पड़ा। देखते हैं हम उसके खुले मुंह में संपूर्ण राष्ट्र की नग्नता। हम देखते हैं, वो देखते हैं, हम सब देखते हैं। बच्चे का शव फुटपाथ पर है पड़ा, ठीक एक बच्चे के शव की तरह। शांति प्रिय है ये देश हमारा। कतरती है ये नागरिकों के तन को अनायास, जैसे राष्ट्रपति की पत्नी अपने पैर के नाखून को कतरती है। सच में हम सबको कितना परिश्रम करना पड़ता है डेंटिस्ट से अपॉइंटमेंट लेने के लिए, ये याद रखने के लिए कि कैसे बनते हैं गर्मियों के सैलेड, बेसिल, टमाटर। आहा, टमाटर क्या स्वाद है, थोड़ा नमक भी डालकर। ये शांति अमन चैन का समय है। मैं गोलियों की आवाज नहीं सुनता, मैं तो सुनता हूं आवाज चिड़ियों के चहचहाने की, उपनगरों के पिछवाड़े में मैं सुनता हूँ आवाज़ चिड़ियों के चहचहाने की उपनगरों के पिछवाड़े में। कितना साफ है आसमान, कितना साफ, माफ करें, कितना साफ। थैंक यू।
Wonderful.
বাহ,
Thank,
বহুত সুন্দর।
thank you so much, Arun Jee, for being
Thank you.
with us. Peace be with you. Peace be with all of us. Peace be
Thank
with all of us. This is one of the things I love about this program, is that we get to honor both home languages from around the world. And it's most amazing when we are able to hear poems in translation, in English and from the home language. So I'm always so grateful for all of the voices and all of the languages. And next we will hear from McCullagh Bombarda, and then Cait McCullagh will follow. Welcome, Michael. Good to see you.
Hello, I'd like to read a poem from my new book, Julia, available on Amazon. Hair. Your hair is changing shape. First you had it long down to the small of your back. You look like this girl I was infatuated with in high school, whose name was Sue. Then you wore your hair to the middle of your back and changed the color to platinum so that you look like some punk rock madame. Changing your color to red and teasing your hair so that seemed a halo around your head was how I remember Trish, who changed her complexion by going to tanning salons. Honey blonde in the length of your neck was how Barb used to wear hers. Let's not talk about Barb. She's married. I don't think her husband would appreciate my mentioning her here. And all shaped around jawline. Your hair reminds me of black bean soup. Warm inviting soup to keep warm in my throat. Then short hair barely covers your head like a breathless Gene Seberg in Joan of Arc. Your hair, though framing a pretty face, is secondary to it. Yet I request a short lock of it as a memento and place it in my copy of De l'Amour by Stendhal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I want to just remind folks that those of you who have collections, please feel free to put that in the chat. And as you know, that one of the things that we love to do here on Cultivating Voices is promote new books and the new work of folks. That's been one of our hallmarks during this time. And it's been exciting to hear from those of you that have had new books come out during the 2 years that we were able to feature on our new book showcases. So many of you, I can't name all of you. As I said, I wanted earlier to list every single name of a person that is read on the program, and it would have taken me like days to do it. So again, a reminder that if you have your collection, feel free today to put that in the chat. We won't be doing bios today. We're just celebrating in our open mic format. Well, people keep coming into the room, which is so great to see. And welcome to everyone. We're going to get to hear next from the wonderful poet. I'm so glad you're here today. So glad you're here today. Cait McCullagh, followed by Joanne James. Oh, it's so good to see you.
Thank you, Sandy.
My heart is with you. My heart is with you.
Thank you. All love to you and to Don and to Kim. And many thanks for this gift you give us, the opportunity to speak the world in poetry and hear the world in each other. So I'm going to read my triptych poem published recently in the Poets Republic anthology In Peace and War. This is Turning Sunwise. I wake and remember that we will hear no sirens, and hands hungry, I lift your unwalked feet, drunk on the futures that will unfold their fatness, forgetting they will march in the lines our fathers scored across her mother's lands. Trespassing the hush of your dreams, I break the night's fast of words, knowing they will not be our last. Under fire, I name the untethering of people and places, coax you from sleep into this glittered loiter of morning sun. We share battalions of bread, soaked ochre in burst yolks. Silent, screens watch as mother's wrap burns in unyields of swaddling. I tell you, today we will not run. Our names will not be among the listed lost. I promise we will hear the white stork sing. In the city, a mother surveys her child's body, surrendering to gentle crusades of fresh, dimpled flesh, swathing peach tender heels, lamb soft and folded, her tongue, her lips kissing history into the slumbered welcome of infants' ears, her language already retreating, hearth-born litanies raised to forgetting. She recites fragrance, taste, essence, Dnieper corn, Carpathian walnuts, cherries of Azaz. Spilling not one, she sows sunflowers, seeding canopies of unceasing hope. Weeping shields of love, she recalls the daylight, always turning sunwise, for this is what the living do. I wake and remember that we will hear no sirens. In the city, a mother surveys her child's body, and hands hungry, I lift your unwalked feet, surrendering to gentle crusades of fresh, dimpled flesh, drunk on the futures that will unfold their fatness, swathing peach tender heels, lamb soft and folded, forgetting they will march the lines our fathers scored across her mother's lands, her tongue, her lips, trespassing the hush of your dreams, kissing history into the slumbered welcome of infant ears. I break the night's fast of words, knowing they will not be our last. Her language already retreating, under fire, hearth-born litanies raised to forgetting. She recites fragrance, taste, essence. I name the untethering of people and places, Dnieper corn, Carpathian walnuts, cherries of Azaz. Coax you from sleep into this glittered loiter of morning sun. Spilling not one, she sows sunflowers. We share battalions of bread, soaked ochre in burst yolks, seeding canopies of unceasing hope. Silent, screens watch as mother's wrap burns in unyields of swaddling. Weeping shields of love, I tell you, today we will not run. Our names will not be among the listed lost. She recalls the daylight. I promise we will hear the white storks sing, always turning sunwise, for this is what the living do.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today on our anniversary reading. And I'm just so grateful every week for the poets that come to read, whether you've been scheduled to read in one of our formats, and particularly on these open mic days. It's a kaleidoscope. It's a kaleidoscope that happens before our very, very eyes when we have a wild card open mic in particular. Thank you very much. Beautiful. We'll next hear from Joanne James, followed by Michael Durack. Welcome, Joanne. So nice to have you with us.
Hi, it's so good to be here. I think that I'm on the showing up at the first Zoom. I don't remember the Facebook. So I just wanted to say I'm here from Eugene, Oregon, and I used my Ukrainian family names today, Orishchin and Vorobchik. I still have family there, but we haven't heard anything. So it's been a hard time for all of us. I'm going to read a poem here called This is the Hungry Age. Grape, snake, ape, snake, we nominate death, snake, unwinding with question, with purpose, a glass of Coke in the afternoon, sugar, snake, feathered, white fence, graffiti, repetition of ROT, homeless pitch tents on the other side of Amazon, creek, snake, cough, rough, snake, an eternal snake, an age hungry for water. Sip, snake, snaking, I'm taking the pulse of this age. I live in the shadow of Snake Mountain. Breath, snake, breathing, beauty snake. Where are we winding up? Where is the plain snake? Day snake, a dream of fallen. Prayer snake and sicken, take the taint and poison. Unakite quartz, my new hat is black. We shade our eyes and watch the horizon. Thumb on the pulse, slither, pulse, slither, what winds up tight. In the hungry age, we fast, we feast, we are bound to dark matter in the country of the blind. We grope our way towards the well. Thank you.
Joanne, thank you so much. And as you'll see in the chat, we're sending out, of course, our support and love to you and your family in the Ukraine. And I do hope that you will hear of news soon. I think it's got to be very agonizing not to be able to be in contact. Yes. All right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for being here, and thank you for coming on to us when we switched over to Zoom. It's been a real pleasure to connect with you and your poetry over this past time. Well, next we go to Limerick to hear from Michael Durack. Wonderful to be with you this evening, Michael. Thank you. And that will be followed by Jude Dubin.
Thanks, Sandy. And again, congratulations to you and Don and Kim for providing this wonderful service over a period of 2 years. It's been a great boost for poets worldwide. I'm going to read one poem with an Anglo or a Irish-American theme. My father was one of 16 children growing up on a small farm in East Clare, and 6 of his siblings, the 5 eldest and the youngest, all immigrated to the United States. So based on some snippets of information I've been picking up over the years, I've written this poem called New World. Larry, nicknamed Sonny, trailblazer, eldest of 16, 11 boys. Up sticks for the new world, roaring 20s. Turned back by US immigration. Rewinds over land and ocean to Ireland, East Clare, small farm, thatched homestead, where a bewildered younger brother runs to tell his mother, there's a fella looks like Sonny in the yard. Undaunted, strikes out again for Illinois, breathes the same ether as Capone's bootleggers, opens the door to younger brother, mild-mannered Denny, naturalized American, St. Patrick's Day, 1938, discreet war veteran to be. Mercurial Dilly sails from Cove aboard the SS Celtic, 1928. Irish Juliet to a Latin Romeo vanishes from family radar, while level-headed Mary leaves her mark in the 15th census of the United States. Cook to a private family on Manhattan's Park Avenue, marries a Galway man, succumbs to a fatal affliction, 1950, the year in which Michael, her brother, as an in-law so cruelly put it, was fished out of the Hudson. Last of all, Joe, the baby, apple of every eye, trades dismal post-war Ireland for the family colony in Chicago, German wife, 3 American kids, returning just the once for a family reunion 9 years before his passing, to chew the fat and sing and pose in a sibling lineup one short of a football team, in a hotel in Scariff. Ashes of his, the only material trace of all that export human freight, to merge with clay of their forebears in Mino Cemetery. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. Michael has been one of those poets who has been with us since the early weeks. I believe reading first in our Titanic, so our celebration, our tribute to Irish poetry, Titanic Irish poetry, on April 14th, 2020, and in our new book showcase, as well as many times on the open mic. And I give a shout out also that Michael's devoted member of the Lime Square Poets group, which originated as Not the Time to Be Silent. And these 2 reading series have a symbiotic relationship, and it's so wonderful. Thank you. Well, we move next to hear from Jude Dubin, and then followed by Isaac Cohen. So good to have you with us here today, Jude. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad to hear you.
And thank you so much for giving us this wonderful Sunday afternoon that I've looked forward to for 2 years now. I come to you from Peoria, Illinois, and I just have one small poem to read. The Women of Lifelong Learning. You look across the room at them, soft, wrinkled faces, natural, serene, eyes sparkling with wisdom and curiosity, white wavy hair and short cut and tidy, all wearing the modern style. And because your heart skips a beat and your mind pauses in admiration, you know at once they are love. You know at once they've suffered loss and that they are the keepers of our world, like the ancient mythical goddesses, holders of what is dear and sacred. And you wonder if the very air quivers from your gaze, whether even after you've looked away, something unforeseen remains. How could it not? How could something so thrilling just disappear? It must have weight, bearing, energy, heat. So much we know but cannot see. Love, too, exists in that pure form, forever pressing against the gentle air. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jude. I'm reminded by your presence that, you know, there are the poets who listen devotedly as well. And I'm very glad when you when you've chosen to read. And I'm also very glad for the folks that just come to listen each week. And you are one of those very devoted listeners, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. Well, we will hear now from Isaac Cohen, whom we've gotten to know over these past months. And so glad to hear you joining us today, Isaac, and followed by Phil Lynch.
Yes. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Don. Congrats. I was happy, very happy to be one of the group of the excellent group. Yeah. Isaac Cohen. The feeling of love. You gave your hand to the lightning angel. You flew around the moment of grace. You gave a kiss to the poor boy, but you won 1 billion stars of love. How marvelous is the feeling of love. And the two, only the two, because yes, the pet of love. You dance with dragonflies. You fly on the wind up and up until the throne. You take my body to the earth of Hilt Farm. You kiss me and dissolve my soul. How marvelous is the pet of love. Thank you, Isaac Cohen, Israel, and thank you, all my friends in the world. Bye.
Oh, I didn't realize I was on, not muted. Thank you so much, Isaac. And it's
Yeah, thank you.
always great to have you with us as well. I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Well, next we get to hear from one of my salmon brothers, Phil Lynch. Good to have you with us. And then followed by Carolyne Wright.
Thanks very much, Sandy, and to yourself and Kim and Don and all involved behind the scenes. I'm sure there are others as well. Happy anniversary, and not too many good things have come out of COVID, but this is certainly one of them, and it's great to be part of it. So thank you. Two little poems. The first one is one that I've read a few times recently. It's not a new one, but it's one that was written another time, another place, or about another time, another war, in fact. And this one is just a simple little poem, but maybe there is a message in the form of a question, and that's why I'm doing it. It's called Present. I wanted to buy you a poem as a present, but the poem shop was all sold out. I asked the assistant behind the counter if he knew what it was all about. He said there had been a run on poems. People were buying them up in tomes. Something to do with the talk of war. Everyone seemed to be lost for words. It was panic buying and nothing else, hoarding and hiding on secret shelves. There might even be rationing, the assistant said. A few lines at a time, even they may not rhyme. Will it matter, I thought, to the dead? It is onward now as we watch the clock, a time bomb ticking away. Soldiers waiting to go over the top, know not the hour nor the day. Is it onward now? and over the top, down into an unmarked grave? Or will someone give the order to stop? Is there anyone still so brave? And just a second little one to finish off, maybe hopefully a little bit more for renewal. It's called Kindling. Very short, Kindling. Set a fire, strike a match. When it catches, fan the flames. Let it burn, spread the ashes. Gather twigs, start again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Phil. So great to, the idea of the poetry shop. I think it's one that we all, I'm fortunate. I was telling folks in Lime Square Poets, I can actually go to a poetry shop. There's a poetry bookstore here in Seattle, and open books if you're ever in the Seattle area, and maybe many of you will be next year for the AWP conference. Also, there is another poetry only bookshop in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Let's hope that more poetry shops emerge. All right, well, next to one of my dear collaborators on another poetry series, the West East Bi-Coastal Poets of the Pandemic,
Right.
and a person who read in our very, very first reading on March 29th. So it is always appropriate to have you read with us, Carolyne, and also please do mention your upcoming event that you put in the chat.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sandy, and happy anniversary. Yay, this has been happening for 2 years. As I said, one of the few blessings to emerge from this crazy COVID. And yes, I was here for the very first Facebook Live reading, and I think I was all set up, clutching my phone, trying to have it all set up at, balanced so it wouldn't fall over. And then I hit go, I hit live, and nobody could see it because it ended up on my Facebook page or something, or I don't know, not, there was this blank of however many minutes, Anyway, it's so much better the way it's organized now, but yeah, that was a fun time. What Sandy asked me to mention, it's in the chat. I'll put it in the chat again in a little bit, but I'm going to be doing a live podcast conversation with Christine Lesniewicz-Holber, who is the founding editor and director of Lost Horse Press. As you can guess from her name, Lesniewicz, she is Ukrainian on both sides. Her father was a freedom fighter against the Nazis. Her mother was a resistor, but ended up in forced labor in some farm in Germany. They somehow made it to New York after the war, and where Christine was born. And she is fluent in Ukrainian, and she's in touch with her relatives there now as this crazy, horrible criminal conflict goes on. But I'm going to read a new poem, in fact, written having to do with this criminal adventure of Vladimir Putin. I shouldn't even have mentioned his name, I'm sorry. But this is a poem called "We Have to Close the Sky." And that, of course, is what Volodymyr Zelensky, the very courageous president of Ukraine, has been saying for the last several weeks, to be able to stop the Russian bombardments. Okay, we have to close the sky. Mariupol Maternity Hospital, Ukraine. She lies on a stretcher hefted by flak-vested medics who hurry across piles of rubble from the bombed-out hospital, whose blank windowed shell still smokes in the near distance beyond fire twisted trees. The medics are bulky in black parkas, black knit caps, and emergency workers' badges on their shoulders. But the woman is bareheaded in a gray sweatshirt, sleeves pushed up above her elbows, one bare forearm raised as if still warding off the blasts that shattered glass and blew out clinic windows and walls whose dust coats her face with a mortal gray. Her other arm curls around her full-term belly, caressing her bloodied lower abdomen in the photos not blurred to hide the spreading gore. Does she feel the child that strokes her? The stretcher bearer's breath as they jostle her in their scramble over broken brick. The only color, almost a clash in this ashen scene, is the watermelon blanket thrown over the stretcher and in onto which she bleeds. Dark pink with black seed dots and the green of leaves and tendrils under her torqued figure. We never learn her name. Brought to another hospital and C-sectioned, she cries out, "Kill me now," as her child's life drains away. Her husband and father come and take them both. Do they bury her in the watermelon shroud? The war is 3 weeks old, the ground littered with paper scraps, or is it snow? Voices we've come to believe in beg us. We have to close the sky. We have to close the sky. Thank you. And that was a photo you may remember having seen it early on. Those photos of that woman being carried away from that hospital in the stretcher. I can post a link to that if you want, but this is the memory that I have. One of the many thousands, hundreds of thousands of stories of this war.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, the thing about war is that there are too many stories. There are just too many stories. And when I think of right behind me is Caroline Forcher's book, Against Forgetting. And I continue to always you've got it right there in front of you too. That
Right at hand.
the poets, we are here. We are here for, as Don Krieger always talks about too, poetry of witness and poetry of conscience. And thank you. Thank you for that poem today. Wow. Oh. And thanks for all the support along the 2 years as well. Well, speaking of another person who's been supporting us through this endeavor for 2 years, our next reader is Ports Parsons. And in addition to being the exquisite poet that you all have come to know and love through hearing her here, I can remember, I believe she read in our second reading, and just marveling when she came on and shared her poetry. And you now know her as the person who is creating our graphics and posting all the time on the page and being of such exquisite support to me through this endeavor. And I'm so grateful. But the thing in addition to the good work, to the very, very good work, I'm most grateful for the very, very good poems. So would you please share a poem with us?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep, and I'm going to put you on the spotlight.
Wow, Carolyne, that was extraordinary, and everyone sharing such beautiful work today. I'm so grateful for this group and all the soul food it has nourished me with over the last 2 years. And I'm going to read something kind of new. I'm not sure if it's finished. I began it a week into the atrocities. My working title right now is What is Taken, What is Left? Winter 2022. A spearhead gleamed on the frost-heaved ground. Facets reflected as I tilted, marveled. Weapon smaller than my thumb, delicate point like a child's chipped tooth. Skilled hands flaked the quartz, shaped notches, fastened with care sinew to sturdy branch, stripped and straight, tried and tested for even heft, sharpened strike by strike just so, not for murder, but for food. At least, I hope hunger was the trigger, not the quick pull and burst of lording death. I looked around, imagined this valley thousands of years ago. No farms, no fences, no wires. Today is the 7th day of Putin's tanks and missiles, hunting and gathering the people of Ukraine. A flapping sound whips my eye down the road to the neighbors. A plastic sign nattering in the wind, metal frame bending. Trump for president 2020. How to teach a restless, greedy heart to still. Just one generation back, that family was forced from their home back in the hollow. Relocation for the national park. Perhaps there is no cure. Marauders, slaughter, and pox. Whole peoples gone or scattered. Just standing here, I am a conqueror too. The mountain's shaggy beauty remains invisible to an eye that seeks a shiny mirror, that loves a portrait of rider and horse. How to teach not to take and kill, but to make and grow. What could ever satisfy? Not this mountain's beauty, nor tending a furrow in its granite shadows, not setting a place for a friend, nor sharing a simple supper of greens from the generous ground, the hoe resting on its hook. Wannabe emperors study maps of conquest, admire the lines of a double-barreled suit. They lie and strut, build palaces, and send in the jets. Plastic signs shout nonsense into the wind. Artifacts of conquest slip from the bulging seams of a fattening purse. Thank you all.
Sitting with that one too. Sitting with that one too. last week, as I mentioned, we had our special event, our Stand With Ukraine reading. And I'm so grateful to everyone who continues and before that reading were bringing their poems of conscience about the experiences of being witness to and connected to the events as they've been unfolding. We're not without connection to people that we do not know. We are not without connection to people that we do not know, because every human being has value. And I've been witnessing that with the poems that you've been sharing these past few weeks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kim. I'm very pleased to welcome next Sylvia Clare, and then followed by Catherine Ronan. Welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you. So I'm going to have to talk into the microphone because it fades out and you won't hear me. So you're going to see my mouth talking, so you get me. Well, I'm kind of following on with the idea of trauma, really, because this poem is called After Trauma, and I was thinking about, I have a history of PTSD because of my childhood, and I was thinking about all the children around the world, not just in Ukraine, but around the world, who are suffering in the most horrendous war and deprivation at the moment, and how much trauma there's going to be around. So this is a poem I wrote about. It's called After Trauma, and it's based on the Norse mythology. The imagery is from the Norse of Ragnarok. Do you know? If you know Ragnarok, you'll understand it. Will I crumble into dust if I dismount the horse of fear? Depart the wild hunt of insanity, take control of my mind, emotions, and life. But who is the controller? It shapeshifts, sometimes strong, fiercely demonic, crazy, wild. Often it cowers, overwhelmed by awe. Thunder bullies my nights, banishing all respite of sleep, rampaging through the dark hours of wakefulness, leaving me exhausted for the restoration of the light. Oh, that I were a wolf child, running free and fearless through the night forest, alive by moon, eyes piercing, darkness welcoming its call of concealment. A fragile girl lies curled in pools, her own blood, endless seeping wounds that cannot heal, pecked at incessantly, the two ravens of thoughts and memory, persecutors of those who would seek peace. Moonstones, misted solidified tears, shed alone at night, reflecting blue, grey, white, moods of shadow and light dancing on my face. Whatever I am given, I have learned not to trust. Your motives, are they for me or your own edification? You cannot buy me. I am priceless, too fragile to earn. Too fragile to own, too fierce. I look timid, soft-spoken, pliable to your demands. Yet I will turn, a fire-breathing dragon, defending my fears and myself. Will I ever know love, the flow of give and take, of acceptance and compassion? That's it.
Wow. Wow, you folks are bringing the poems today. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sylvia. And you've got a request for that poem, so please make sure you check in the chat. Cynthia Steele would like to connect with you.
Well, it's from a book I published a little while ago called Love and Chocolate, but it's also published recently in a mental health magazine called Open Minds, which is a Canadian publication. So that one they got published in that as well. So I'll put the book in chat.
In the chat, definitely. And thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me
Always.
today.
Well, we next move on to Catherine Ronan. I'm so glad you're here today.
All the way from Ireland.
Oh my
Happy Mother's
gosh, I
Day,
know.
everybody.
Good evening, good evening. And you're going to be followed by Billy Brown. But for right now, we're going to get to hear your remarkable poetry.
Thank you, Sandy. I want to bring into the room a man called Boris Romanchenko, who was killed on the 18th of March, 2022. He survived 4 Nazi camps, and I'm going to call this poem Holocaust Heart, and his number was 9870. Holocaust Heart. 4 times prisoner, 4 different camps, 4 different lives, 5 bits between lips, shining through every window, thumbs print all dirty mirrors, blood on the floor beneath the piano, writes tomorrow in 2 wet sneaks. Tongues will find you in other rubble, music and lost song hold a splinter of your glass soul.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh. I don't think I'm going to make it through this reading. How about you, Kim?
I am quivering with emotion
I know.
at every poem. Amazing work.
Oh my gosh, of course. Wow. Yeah, that's been what it's been like for 2 years. Every Sunday, a quiver, every Sunday. Well, our next quiver. Billy Brown, it's been so fabulous to get to. I want to just mention that Billy Brown is also I know I said I wasn't going to talk about things and talk about people, but I keep doing it. So, all right, we're good with time. I just want to say that in addition to people that bring poems to our platform every week, we also are graced with people that are just incredible poetry citizens and hold their own reading series, publish their own anthologies, and are grand poetry citizens. And that is definitely the definition of Billy Brown Fixed and Free poetry series out of Albuquerque. And we have also developed just such a great relationship with the poets of New Mexico through the pandemic on this platform. And I'm really grateful to you, Billy, and to all of your comrades out there in Berkeley. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sandy. And this is our new endeavor. It's a quarterly magazine. This is the first issue just out this month. And I put in the chat my email address in case anyone wants more information. Thank you so much. Cultivating Voices has certainly brightened up my Sunday afternoons now for many months, and I'm so happy to be here. I haven't read very much on Cultivating Voices, so I have several poems for you today. This reading is devoted to daughters. As many of you know, my own daughter, Elizabeth Ann Brown, died quite a few years ago now in a car crash. This first poem is by a friend of mine who passed away a few years ago at age almost 90, and it's entitled "The Daughter I Never Had," in memory of Jennifer, her daughter Jennifer, was born dead. The daughter I never had is a hostess at the Rio Grande restaurant in Harlingen, Texas, teaches scuba diving in Baja, married her childhood sweetheart, works as a bank teller in Hobart, Louisiana, was convicted on 4 shoplifting counts, now on probation, is head mistress of an exclusive licee in Geneva, owns a kiln, sells her pottery in Scottsdale, earned her master's degree in oceanography from Scripps, models nude for an art school in Stuttgart, won critical praise as Nora in A Doll's House, is happily married to an engineer from New Zealand, their home, a trailer on a North Dakota construction site. An alcoholic, she sings the blues in Memphis while filing her 3rd divorce, is co-owner of a Happy Burger franchise with her female lover in Seattle, sleeps in a tent on a bend of the Orinoco, part of a Peace Corps team, co-pilots a C-47 transport, regularly crossing and recrossing the Atlantic, deals blackjack in a Laughlin, Nevada casino, designed an online service in Boston, was never married, is involved in a bitter custody battle with her ex-husband, operates a tractor in upstate New Jersey, a coked up hooker, works out of the Good Time Motel on the edge of Hollywood. The daughter I never had is the daughter who will never call home. The next one is for my baby brother's daughter, Lauren. Lauren was married a few years ago in the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., and I wrote this poem to read at her wedding. So I had the honor of reading this in the National Cathedral. It was written while listening to Johann Sebastian Bach's Partita, and the stanzas are titled by the names of the different parts of the partita. 1, Alemanda. Love is an apricot pastry, orange, sticky, sweet, oddly tinged with tartness, like 2 wild hearts. 2, Corrente. Love is racing hand in hand across a mountain meadow until, exhausted, you stumble, laughing, falling in a tangled heap, wrapped in each other's arms. 3, Sarabanda. Love is holding her face with gentle hands, gazing into her eyes, kissing tears of joy, drinking nectar of ecstasy. 4, Giga. Love is dancing close enough to feel the other's breath, eyes glued to one another, seeing only the beloved, circling so closely. Separation is inconceivable. Chacona. Love is 2 voices becoming one, 2 minds becoming one, 2 bodies becoming one, 2 souls becoming one, 2 prayers becoming one, 2 faiths becoming one, 2 lives becoming one life. This next poem was written while listening to a young woman playing the violin who reminded me of my daughter so much that I just had to write this poem. It's called Roberta, for Roberta Arruda, who's a Brazilian violinist. To see you again after 3 weeks is like seeing a daughter gone 14 years. Her tan skin, her long brown hair, her dark brown eyes, her long delicate fingers dancing on violin strings, her small nose, her smiling lips, gently pressed together in effort, are all yours now in blessed reincarnation. Her flesh, her moisture, her ashes, her steam, her grace, her beauty, miraculously reassembled, a divine gift.
Beautiful.
Here's one that I wrote last year watching the Masters golf tournament. and it's entitled She Made It. In a television advertisement during the Masters golf tournament, a young girl wearing a visor over her long dark hair addresses a long putt, carefully plots the path, takes a deep breath to relax her muscles, strokes the ball. It curves toward the hole where her father holds the pin, encouraging the ball forward, saying, "Get legs." The ball seems to hesitate at the lip of the cup, then plunks into the hole, rattles at the bottom. The girl jumps with joy, scampers across the green into her father's arms, receive a big hug of congratulations. They hurry to their golf cart. She's giggling her satisfaction. I do not register the sponsor of the advertisement as I thwart my tears, stifle my sobs as my daughter will never again giggle her satisfaction. I'll no longer hug her in congratulations. 25 years ago, when she was 18, Elizabeth died in a car crash. And one more. I just have to scroll a moment here to get to it. Is there any difference? I wrote this within sight of the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, a couple months after its destruction at the World Trade Center, December 7th, 2001. Is there any difference? Crashing, smashing steel, music of violent collisions, spurting, flowing blood, majesty of hemorrhaging wounds, streaming, splashing tears, moisture of eternal grief. Is the tragedy of these thousands any different from her tragedy? Is the desperation of these parents any different from her father's desperation? Is their ton of blood any different from her gallon? Their blood and hers are as one. Their desperation and mine are as one. Their tragedy and Elizabeth's are as one. One difference may be, I forgive and love Elizabeth's killer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Billy, for that tribute to, as folks say in the chat, to both love and pain, and your tribute to daughters, our mini feature within the features today. Very moving.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And folks, do check out Fixed and Free out of Albuquerque, and Billy can put some information in the chat about when the readings are held. And he puts out just fabulous publications as well. So a definite poetry ambassador. Well, we definitely have time. I'm so glad to say we're going to go to our waiting list, and we'll just have folks join us for one poem a piece. And thank you, Kim, for navigating the waiting list. We will turn first to our most devoted person, that if this person was not with us every single week, we would not be with you every single week. And so I cannot, there's not enough applause, love, appreciation we can send to you, Don Krieger, whom I met through Susanna Case, told me to contact you about your hopscotch reading series. And if it hadn't been for that fortuitous happenstance, and when I think of like what's been one of the best things that's happened to me, I think of like meeting Don Krieger. It's right up there. So Don, share one of your great poems.
Here, 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 here.
Right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
That catches Sandy.
Thank you.
To save a life is to save the world. Early in the 2016 football season, players began to kneel during America's national anthem to protest police brutality. An A student and all state, you went cheap to Nevada, where you shine. On the block, again 4 years later, you brought top dollar to go pro. To the fans now, you're ingrate or hero, gifted, beautiful in your tight pants and plastic armor, ripe for the blow that will break your neck. When we stand for the anthem, you kneel beneath the yoke and cry out, no more. If the field announcer called us to remember the dead as you do, one at a time, would we kneel with you? We who count murders on a scoreboard? Would we remember the dead as you do, one at a time, each a mighty blow which moves the world? To save a life is to save the world.
Thank you. Thank you. It's like there's so many poems in that your newest in that collection that I revel at, and that is certainly that is the one that when I first read it, like really poignantly like went through me, like became part of my consciousness. Thank you, Don, for everything. Anniversary readings are hard. I'm just saying. Oh, I'm just getting really choked up today by everybody. We're gonna go next to another poet that I just really, really appreciate. And there's so many things I appreciate about Scott Norman Rosenthal. And I'm very grateful to know you. I'm so glad I've gotten to meet you.
Okay. I'm going to pull up the poem. You'll be able to see me, but I won't be able to see you. There's one poem, I'm still working on it. It actually has to do with the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. And it actually got me thrown out of one reading series because it's not the party line. Neither was my attitude toward the war in Ukraine the party line. But one doesn't deny that there are people that are caught in the middle of everything. But I'm going to read this one because I wanted to read it for International Women's Day. And it is a completed poem and has been for quite some time. The mad enchanter dances for Sister Alice, for Penelope Dugan and for Eric Wallace. The past. Sisters somewhere, land is burning. The people grow out of agony. Somewhere strange, wondrous, other voices, sunlit cadence, folk rejoice. The hope, corn of the soil, doorways of childhood. Youth, what place we might envision. The dancing, There are fires, there be autumn, and the land has spun about, again. We might walk, shift our way around fires, through the land, again. Sister, we may leap, transcend the fires, walk about through the land, about, again. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I know that that poem is very important to you, and I appreciate that you shared it with me earlier this month, and that you've been able to share it with us today. Thank you so much. Well, next, we've got a few more readers to go, one poem each. We're going to hear from 3 more folks. We might have another opportunity to sneak in a few others if somebody wants to read, I think.
And Sandy, we would
Yeah.
all love to hear you read at this 2nd anniversary if you're so
Yeah,
inclined.
yes.
I'll read a poem. I'll read
Yeah,
a poem.
all right.
Okay. I'm gonna go to Thomas. Hey, Thomas, my neighbor here in Olympia, and new member of the Olympia Poetry Network. I can't wait to be in person with you soon.
Oh my goodness. Well, in honor of the anniversary, I was here when it was still on Facebook too. I was a early adopter or early adoptee of your family. That's what I feel like. And so in honor of that, though, I'm going to read a poem that might not have been written without cultivating voices, and it certainly wouldn't have been published in Sri Lanka or Australia or in Serbian or Spanish or Bengali, which it has. The poem called In a Time. There are times when I feel trapped in time, and this is one of those times. The year 2020, a time in the impossible future I expected not to be alive to see. And the month is August, and August is the month and time of litany. It is the month of my one wedding, the month of gaining a son who could have been 31. It is the month of our first walk along the salt shore together, and of my beloved's first illness, harbinger of worse to come. Month of our lost mortgage, of bankruptcy, August of learning my only brother had renal cell carcinoma, would soon follow my father into that hard darkness. The month of disability determination, August of a diagnosis at last, terribly final as it is. And it is still the month berries ripen along humid vines, corn ears swell in steamy fields as fawns fatten out of their spots, gorging on clover blossoms and dandelion blooms, as seal pups bask between fishing lessons, as fingerlings flash to avoid shadows, as kingfisher young learn not to make shadows as they dive. It is the month apples begin to blush at the thought of falling. Time of joy upon joy, joy upon sorrow, time of sorrow, time of love upon love upon love.
That's just a beautiful poem, and I can see why it has been translated. into a bazillion languages. And I love the stories that I get to hear from people about, how they've made connections with people and how they've been inspired by people that they've met here, and the collaborations that have happened because they've met someone, connected with a poet. And it's very humbling to think that our modest platform, has sent out its tentacles in all these miraculous ways. So let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Well, another miraculous tentacle that emerged is when I got to meet Josephine Loray, and have been able to spend some virtual time in Calgary over these past 2 years. And Josephine, also, you were one of those poets that came on in the early weeks, and we have the video, the first video, and it's like upside down or sideways or something like that.
Yeah.
The very first reading, and you've joined us on many different programs, special featured programs over the 2 years, and been a devoted open mic person. And I'm just, I just love you. And I'm so glad that you've been part of the journey for the past 2 years.
Thank you. Thank you for always being so encouraging and supportive. And I'm going to echo happy anniversary. And I think Cultivating Voices is one of the nicest gifts of COVID. And I don't think that I would have had the courage to write this poem if it hadn't been for the voices that I've heard. It's new and it's still evolving. I need to say, though, that I live in Calgary, which is the ancestral and traditional homes of people that were sent from their lands, the Piikani, the Kainai, Tsuut'ina, Siksika, and Nakota. So I'd like to pay tribute to them and maybe keep them in mind as I read this poem called A Single Leaf. This poem is a leaf falling from a tree. This poem is the stillness after the last echo sounds, the pause between an exhalation and the next inhale. This poem is gravel embedded into knees, an offering of thanks for a crust of week-old bread. This poem is the rumble of armored trucks, a deluge of debris. This poem is every story, every footfall walking further from belongings, step by step towards a safety beyond borders. This poem is a pacifier in the dead grasses by the roadside, family photos curling in the flame. This poem is fingers playing a white piano for the very last time, a baker in a land of foreign tongue, braiding dough. This poem is centuries of steady leaving, flaxen-haired children playing in the grasses of the Canadian West, hearing tales of their babushka. This poem is the pattern finally painted on a Pascal egg, a ribbon woven, a dance steeped in folklore. This poem is empty words and hollow lies. This poem is arrogance, the hubris of ambition, a heart of anthracite. This poem is despotic, the color of blue sky, golden sun, a tattered flag at dusk. This poem is the world watching, too afraid to condemn, the pause between an inhalation and the last exhale. This poem is the silence that thunders after the last echo. This poem, a single leaf falling from a tree. This poem is a doll, trampled, a fountain, withered, markings for growth penciled on a door jamb in a house in which the roof has fallen in. This poem is a whimper in the night. This poem is Syria, Passchendaele, Dakar. This poem is Dresden, Tripoli, Ukraine. This poem is polished leather marching in the mud to the counterpoint of hatred. This poem is a drone, the barrel of a gun. This poem is daffodils sprung from ground, no one there to marvel. This poem is a prayer unanswered in the dark. A graveyard, headstones tumbled in the tumult. This poem is hope navigating in a blind sky. This poem is fear, the stench of death. A seed swallowed in the belly of the plenty. This poem is numb. This poem is sirens, air raids, blackouts, a mother shushing a wailing child, eyes dimmed by the hunger and the horror. This poem is robin muted, barn owl stunned into silence. This poem is humanitarian, drop by single drop, the cold press of metal. This poem is making its way over rubble, the body yearning for comfort, for respite, for home. This poem is the blue glow of late night news, the drone, the drone. This poem is Gallipoli, the Battle of Batoche, Beirut, Leningrad, Michilimackinac, Kiev. This poem is a weightless child born on weary shoulders, the elderly, infirm, left behind. This poem is the same mistake repeated. Power, greed, and lust, and all the venial sins and all the mortal sins combined in circles, circles upon circles of inner hell. This poem is the atrocities of man, barriers, fences, roadblocks, undiluted hate. This poem is a cry tearing the veil of night. This poem is a leaf, a single leaf falling from a single tree. This poem is a stream running red, bodies rotting into ground. This poem is letters undelivered, lovers lost to each other and forever, babies not conceived and never born. This poem is fields untilled, unsown, song unsung, country churches, windows smashed and broken. This poem is chickens left to rummage, cows unmilked, sheep unshorn, a horse dying of starvation on cold ground. This poem is the moon hung low in desperation, the deportation of Acadians at the point of bayonet, Tibet, Jerusalem, Berlin, the walls of wailing, the walls of brick, the floating exodus of Vietnam. This poem is Mogadishu, Rwanda, the lost boys of Sudan. This poem is drownings in the harbor, the Noche Triste, the Fourth Reich. This poem is the West Bank and the Nile, the War of 1812, the War of Secession, the war against repression, the war against concession. This war is a reed basket. This poem is Daniel and the lion, Samson shorn. This poem is David without a slingshot or a stone. This poem is a leaf, a single leaf, falling from a tree, a single tree, floating on a river turning red.
This poem is the world watching. The litany of that poem. Also the alchemy of the reading today, and the readings today, the alchemy of like how you all could not have known what you each were going to read, and how it's come together is extraordinary. Wow. Thank you so much, Josephine. And I'm glad that the voices of this platform supported you in being able to share that poem with us. Wow. Well, another poet who joined us in the early weeks is with us today. I'm so happy to see you. Amy Berry. Oh, it's so great. Look at people waving at you.
Hello, everyone.
Oh.
I'm reading from Athlone, Ireland. So it's happy anniversary. Sandy came, Dawn, Beth, and it's lovely to be here. I will read a poem. It's called She Tucks the Blanket Tighter. A fake dahlia floral arrangement, still in the shadows of a coffee table. It somehow seems to her a reflection of how her life might close. She holds tight a crochet blanket, facing the news, the figures, and the closeness of an air-blown virus that could be swirling outside her window. The man who bought her the fabric she holds would say, "I need to go out for my walks." But he left her years before she expected, apart from photos arranged on a dresser. It was nothing as dramatic as a pandemic that took him. No, it was much more innocuous. The doctor said it didn't seem too serious. Oh, she had offers of company, but for 30 years, she preferred to live alone. No, it's the one thing she dreads of her final hours. But who would visit her at such risk? How long more? She asks herself. And she tucks the blanket tighter. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Amy, for everything. That poem, and for all the ways that you contribute and share with people on the Facebook page. You're one of those folks that's so encouraging and posting, and been with us for 2 years. It's so I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
Oh, what a poem. My gosh, I can't today. All right, folks. I'm going to close us out, I think, for today. We try to stay to about 90 minutes. We're horrible at it, or I should say I'm horrible at it, as you all know. I'm getting some claps for that. Maybe that's a good thing. Today I'm going to read a poem for my mom because she's here today. And today is a little bit of probably a hard day in our family because it's 2 months since my dad passed. So I'm going to read a poem for my mom. And I was going to read a COVID poem, but I think she's here, and this is like one of her favorite poems. So I wanted to just read this for her. This is in Boats for Women. It's called The Next 30 Years. Over breakfast, my father calculates out loud the number of times he will see me before he dies. 2 times a year over the next 30. I hold my breath to stop the 2-year-old girl in the picture on this sill from growing. Think about game shows, speed rounds with 60 digital seconds on the clock evaporating backwards. How day after day, thoughts of winning inferior prizes trick me into watching what the many faces of losing 60 seconds can look like. He counts spoons of sugar into his mug, stirs like a magician, pouring milk into a tight fist and waving everything effortlessly goodbye. And I see now, on this visit home, the magic in my learning to walk. My father's bare hands, just visible inside the photograph's border, ringed around my skinny arms, all my ancestors lined up outside the camera's focus to help him gently pull me closer to the escape. Even he can't teach me to resist. Well, we've had a quite moving anniversary reading today for our second year of being together, everyone. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. To those of you who came to listen, those of you who read, and those of you who have read in the past, and those of you who will read with us in the future. Let me remind you of everyone that you heard today on the program. We began at the top of our hour with Cait Wegrzyn, Arun Jee, McCullagh Bombarda, Cait O'Neill McCullagh, Joanne James, Michael Durack, Jude Dubin, Isaac Cohen, Phil Lynch, Carolyne Wright, Kim Ports Parsons, Sylvia Clare, Catherine Ronan, Billy Brown, Don Krieger, Scott Norman Rosenthal, Thomas A. Thomas, Josephine Loray, Amy Berry, and I shared a wee little poem with you. Would you please take a moment to just unmute and show your appreciation for our readers today?
Bravo.
For your sharing spirit.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Hooray.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Happy anniversary, everyone. Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
And in England, it's Happy Mother's Day.
Ah,
Indeed,
yes,
it is
wow.
Mother's Day. Yes, indeed. Thank
Yeah,
you.
happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day. And
Happy
you'll get
Mother's
another
Day.
one here in 2 months, so.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Well, as we get ready to close out, I want to just make a few announcements. As I mentioned, I want to give a big shout out to last week's readers that joined us in our Stand With Ukraine, special event reading, where we featured the poets from Lost Horse Press contemporary Ukrainian poetry series. And I wanted to again mention their names. Joining us from Ukraine was Irina Staravoit, with her translator, the curator of that series, Grace Mahoney. While we were not able to hear from live the Sherzonskys, we were able to hear Boris Drulyuk read and share poets from Boris Sherzonsky, and also Diane Seuss sharing her translation of Ludmila Sherzonsky's poetry. We also had the wonderful translations from Natalka Belosarkovits with her translators, Ali Kinsella and Vinia Orlowski. That book is called Eccentric Days of Hope and Sorrow. These are all from Lost Horse Press. And we also heard from the translator who shared with us a wonderful sharing of a series of poets, Vitaly Chernetsky. So thank you so much to Catherine Linetvich, Holbert, and Grace Mahoney from Lost Horse Press for being with us and allowing us to support the poets and the people of Ukraine through poetry last week. Well, next week we will return. It begins April, and here in the States and also in Ireland and in Canada, it is National Poetry Month, and there may be other places in the world where it is also Poetry Month. Of course, for us, it's Poetry Day every day, but we get to devote a month. And to kick off our Poetry Month events, we're going to be having an incredible anthology reading from the anthology, I Want to Be Loved by You, Poems About Marilyn Monroe, with editors Susanna Case and Margot Taft Stever from their anthology from Milk and Cake Press. And a few of the poets that are going to be joining us, you will recognize their names from being with us previously, will be Dawad Phillip, Sally Bilimus Dunn, C.A. Conrad will be joining us, Denise Duhamel, who's read with us, Lynn McGee, one of my other poetry sisters in the Poets of the Pandemic series, Indran Amirthanayagam, and many, many others will be joining us to read their poems from the anthology of that iconic movie star, Marilyn Monroe. Come join us with Margot and Susanna to showcase their anthology. We'll of course have new book showcases coming up this month, and we'll have we have a special treat coming up later in the month that is in development. So I'm going to just tantalize you with that. I want to just say that this poetry series has been every Sunday for me, one of the most nurturing things that I've ever been involved with in my life. And it could not happen without all of you. And again, I'm really grateful to have been able to spend almost every Sunday over these past 2 years and made the pandemic somehow less pandemicable, less pandemic-y, whatever that adjective is going to be. You know, poetry has been the thing that has gotten probably each one of us through the most difficult parts of our lives and has been our companion through through the most ecstatic part of our lives. And that has certainly been true for me as I've been listening to all of you over these past 2 years and hearing your work that I know has not only influenced, but has inspired and has moved many. Poetry reaches us in different ways, and one poem reaches another that might not touch another person, but I do feel very, very confident that every single one of your voices has reached someone remarkably during this series in myriad of ways. And that's been across time, space, and cultures over these past 2 years. It's been just been an absolute joy and thrill and honor to be with you on Sundays and to hover over that Facebook page when I get on it and post to you all. And I look forward to the rest of this upcoming year. I'll end how I end every week by encouraging you all to stay safe and take very, very good care of your beloveds. And of course, to keep writing what we witnessed and experienced today, as we do every Sunday. Your exquisite most humane, remarkable poetry. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Let the movie stars come out. Have a good week, everyone.
Hooray, hooray.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. Thank you. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
We'll be in touch. I'll send you an email.